Welcome, everyone, to our 2025 season football officials educational video for week 11. We have now completed the regular season here in North Carolina after 11 weeks. We now begin week one of the playoffs. So, playoffs are upon us. And so, I'm going to focus on some things in this week's video regarding some things that we can do to prepare for our potential playoff games. Also, let's make sure we continue to utilize our radios that we use here in our association and communicate with our officials, especially during penalty enforcement situations and penalty information that is vital to communicate to our coaches on the sidelines. It's very helpful when we do that. All right, let's get into our first play for week 11, which is a kickoff play. As we look at this play, we're going to see a kickoff, and we can see our kicking team here is bunched up, and then they rush to the ball and kick the ball off. And so what are some of the things we need to do to officiate this play and be alert for? So first of all, just want to make a point out. I noticed here our line judge is positioned on ours line here on the 50. Make sure that you're ready because you're going to see this kickoff happen, and our line judge is looking to the right. And we want to be alert and ready. We don't want to miss something because we were looking the wrong way, especially as we get into our playoff games, or any game for that matter, because these games, all games, are important to our teams. Now, first things first. Right there, when we get right here, we're going to see our kicker. Now, we know by rule that no player other than the kicker can be more than 5 yards behind the ball, and we didn't have that. So any of one of these players can kick the ball, but we also know by rule in 613 that we have to have 4 players on each side of the kicker for this to be legal. And so from this camera angle, I couldn't tell you. The only official probably that could tell you is the referee. The referee is probably in the best position without a doubt to be able to see this and make this call, even though the referee is positioned at the goal line. Now, the second part here is the ball has to be grounded and go 10 yards before our kicking team here can legally recover that ball. And so we see the ball does do both them things. Now, let's come back to the part about being able to see 4 players on each side by the referee. Now, I'm going to use this kickoff right here. We can see our referee way down in the corner on the visiting side. Now, prior to the current mechanics manual from the National Federated High School Sports, the referee was shaded somewhat to the visiting side of the field. And I think if you're on this side of the field on a kickoff, it makes it hard for you to be able to potentially see on that kickoff that we started off this week's plays with, that bunch formation, the legality of 4 on each side. So with the new mechanics manual that we currently use, we can see the ball here positioned in the middle of the field on a kickoff. Now, this is obviously not a hard play to make a decision of 4 on each side, but that bunched formation, we'll see at the bottom of the screen here that I have arrow, our official, our referee, is in the middle of the field, kind of lined up with the ball. Now, I think you can move side to side a little bit if you needed to, but this puts you in the best position to observe 4 to side. So let's make sure we adhere to those mechanics and our referees in the proper position. Play 2 this week. We're going to focus on the holder. This is an extra point attempt after the touchdown. We're going to focus on 17. Now, referees, coming into playoffs, we need to be ready. We need to be alert to officiate this. Ball is snapped to the holder. The holder from his knee passes the ball forward. Do we have a successful 2-point conversion? The answer is no. We can clearly see on this play, our holder number 17 receives the snap and then passes the ball forward. What he does not do is required by Rule 4. The holder must rise to advance, hand, kick, or pass the ball. Our holder does not do it. That means this play would be declared dead once he passed that ball forward because he did not rise off his knee. We know coming into playoffs, we are going to see some teams that we have not seen during the regular season from out of the area. We also know that sometimes that our teams that we have seen come up with plays like this because potentially they may have seen them on a college game. Well, in high school, this is not permitted. This player or this holder must rise off his knee. Referees, you're primary on this. You need to be ready to officiate this and ensure that that holder, if he's going to pass, kick, advance the ball, hand it off, rises off of their knee prior to committing the act of passing, handing, kicking, or advancing the ball. Be ready and alert for this as you might see it. Here's a good play. We can talk about a lot on this play. This is a field goal attempt. Our focus will be on two specific players. Our holder, who's blocked out here by our kicker at this point in time, but we're going to see an end zone angle, a better look. And then we're going to look at the tight end here, who's eligible by position and number. Now, two things on this play. We see the snap to the holder. The holder stands up, passes the ball downfield, and we see the referee stops the play and says the play is down, apparently ruling that the holder was down. Now, a couple of things to look at on this play. We have to look at, was this a legal formation? And was the holder commit anything illegal or legal, or was it all legal play? First of all, you can see from this angle that the holder does not have his knee on the ground. So why is that important? Well, we know by rule, under Rule 214 formations, to be a legal scrimmage kick formation, the holder must have his knee on the ground. He does not here. We also know by rule that for the player that we just talked about, for the holder to legally pass the ball in this situation, he must rise. He didn't have a knee on the ground, but he still rose off the ground, so that's legal. Now, the other part of this play is because our holder didn't have a knee on the ground, we were not in what we would consider a scrimmage kick formation. Because the kicking team is not in a scrimmage kick formation, as described under Rule 214 under formations, they cannot use the numbering exception. That means they have to have 5 players 50 through 79 on the line of scrimmage to make this a legal formation. Umpires should be alert for this. And we can see here, number 67, 72, 66, 70, and finally 75. So yes, we have 5 players numbered 50 through 79 on the line of scrimmage. So we have a legal formation. We are not in a scrimmage kick formation. So we have a legal 5 players 50 through 79. From what I can see from both angles, this would be a legal play both by legal formation and legal by the holder, because the holder did rise. Even though he didn't have a knee on the ground, he didn't necessarily have to rise. But he did rise, and he threw a legal forward pass to an eligible receiver. So this team ran this play legally, and we need to be alert for this and ready to officiate this. Umpires look for those numbering exceptions and so forth. Referees look for that holder, whether his knee's on the ground or not. All right, I want to point out a couple things on play number 4 here. Inside that circle, we have 14 of the 22 players on the field, so about 2/3 of the players are on the line judge side of the field, shifted off to that side. So my question here is, mechanics-wise, since this is not a normal formation and we have so many players on the line judge side of the field, would it be best off for potentially our umpire or our back judge or both of them to shift that way some to help officiate with that number of players? Just throw that out there as a possibility, something you can discuss with your crew in a 5-person crew if you run into this formation. Now, let's get into this. This is an extra point attempt. We've scored the touchdown. We're going to an extra point, so I'm going to read out the numbers. The first player I have highlighted by number there is 88 by the arrow. The second one is all the way on the inside is 89. Okay, so we have 88, 89 on both ends of those lines right there on this side of the field. That's number 22 in the backfield there. Our snapper is number 35, and then we have number 80 and number 18 in the backfield behind the snapper. And then all the way out to the right, we don't see him, is number 6. We'll see him when he goes in motion back towards the middle of the field. I want to read out these numbers. Notice I have 4 arrows. I'm going to read from left to right. 77, 71, 58, 64. Again, 77, 71, 58, 64. 4 arrows. That's a hint. Okay, we're going to watch this play out after the snap. They're going to snap the ball from this formation. And my question to you is this legal? Is this 2-point conversion successful? The answer is no. We should have a marker on the ground, at least one marker or more. Why? Well, this is a play where we have no holder and no kicker. Remember, we've talked about this. We have to have a holder 7 yards behind the snapper with a knee on the ground. Holder 7 yards behind the snapper with a knee on the ground. We have to have a kicker in place behind that to kick the ball 3 yards or less. We do not have that. We have 2 players here that are not in position to be a holder and a kicker. I've already pointed out we only had 4 players 50 through 79. You can only use the numbering exception when you're in a scrimmage kick formation. This is not a scrimmage kick formation. We are not legal here formation wise. So at the snap, this becomes illegal. We only have 4 players 50 through 79. We must have either 5 players 50 through 79 for this to be legal, or we have to take these 2 players as I've highlighted, and one has to be a holder with his knee on the ground, the other has to be in place to be the kicker. But we only have 4 players 50 through 79. Right now, as soon as we snap that ball, we should have markers on the ground, illegal formation, 5-yard previous spot, replay the down. As you can see in all these plays, play number 5 here is another play after the touchdown, try for point, and our teams continue to become more creative with their formations and so forth, and it puts more of a demand on us to have to be very knowledgeable in the rules to know if it's legal or not legal. Let's start out by our player here to the left. I have highlighted by the arrow. I'm going to read the numbers. His number is 20. So we're going to start there. We'll work our way across the formation. Our next 3 here are 68, 52, and 51 from left to right. Our snapper on this play right here is number 55. And then finally to the right of our snapper, these 3 are 50, 11, and 33. So we do have 5 players 50 through 79 on the line of scrimmage. So that part of this formation is legal. 5 players 50 through 79 because they're not in a scrimmage kick formation, which we have already discussed. This player right here is number 9. And then finally, our 2 backs from left to right, 34 and 12. Now, let's come back and take a look at our snapper on this play. We can see that our snapper is lined up at an angle. And if we read underneath Rule 2, underneath player designations, it says a snapper is a player who is facing his opponent's goal line and his shoulders approximately parallel thereunto and who snaps the ball. You could make a case here that maybe his shoulders are parallel, maybe his shoulders are not parallel. It depends on how you look at it, depends on your angle and your view. This is interesting how this snapper lines up. And so here again comes that challenge of us having to determine if this snapper is lined up in a legal position with that slight angle, with his shoulders not exactly 100% parallel to the goal line of the opponent as per the rule. This is an interesting formation, specifically with the snapper being in that position, but it's something we need to look at, be prepared, and realize that, we've got to look and know the rules. We've got to look at the formation and know the rules of each formation so that we can properly rule on it in these games. It is challenging at times, but if we work together and be prepared, we'll be ready for it. Play number 6 is a play where we're going to have field goal attempt. And our focus will be on this player I've highlighted inside the circle, number 3, on defense, in his actions, which we will witness here in a minute. He comes up and claps. Okay. Now, the offense or the kicking team does not react or false start, but would this be a foul if they did on the offense or defense? And by his actions underneath Rule 719, this would be a disconcerting act because it states no defensive player shall use disconcerting acts or words prior to the snap in an attempt to interfere with A signals or movements. And his action by snapping, as we know from the game of football, are routinely used by the offense, specifically the quarterback. Now, so we have to consider that those actions are more of an offensive than a defensive signal. And if the kicking team here did false start, we need to be alert for that. And we actually would penalize the defense, number 3, for a disconcerting act. And just to use the casebook somewhat, the casebook does state that if the covering official's judgment, the action by B was for the purpose of disconcerting or hindering A, it is a foul for a disconcerting act. So be alert for this. Be prepared for this. If you are in the area and can observe this, and we get a foul on the offense or the kicking team, and we want to come in with this information and get a marker down also on the defense and discuss it and indicate that this defensive player number 3 here was clapping, and that was what caused the offense to false start. If we're alert for this and ready and prepared for it, we can officiate it better. But be aware, be ready, and be prepared, and you'll be able to identify these actions that are disconcerting acts on the defense. Play 7, we're going to talk about Rule 7, Section 5, whether it's legal grounding or illegal grounding, intentional grounding. Now, the first thing we need to know is our free blocking zone, and I have the gold line there to give an idea of where the free blocking zone is, because remember, our passer can get outside that and legally ground the ball. The other important line here is the neutral zone of the line of scrimmage, which looks to be the 42-yard line, because the ball has to make it back to that goal line, that line of scrimmage extended or neutral zone extended. So we can see that our passer here rolls out and he clearly gets outside the free blocking zone, but we see the ball looks like right around the 39-yard line gets touched by a coach on the sideline. And we know, as we've already talked about, that our neutral zone is the 42. So now is where we have to decide if that was legal grounding or do we need to put a marker down. So the first thing is we know our passer received the ball and got outside the free blocking zone clearly, even though he left our screen. The second part is did the ball make it back to the neutral zone, the line of scrimmage, which is extended to the boundary lines. So this is a good time for the referee to get to the spot of where the passer, and I don't know exactly where it was, get to the spot and start communicating. The crew needs to start communicating. Now we have a resource that we use in our association with our radios, and this is a good time for the referee to get on that radio and ask the crew if he's not getting information. Did the ball get to the neutral zone, past the neutral zone, because I have him outside the free blocking zone? It is important that we communicate that. And any official who has information or knowledge of it needs to communicate that back to the referee to appropriately get this call correct on the field. If we don't communicate during this point in time, we may or may not get it correct. But it's important that we use the resources we have in communication to get this call correct. This concludes the Week 11 video. Thank you for taking the time to watch this week's video. Please feel free to comment, hit the share, like button, and so forth. Thanks, everyone. And until the next time we produce a video, take care.